So Genndy Tartakovsky's Fixed is an adult animated comedy about a dog losing his balls. Like, I know it's meant to be a little bit more about, like, self-esteem, and there's a romance involved, but it's mostly just, like, an adult animated comedy involving dogs doing very gross-out stuff. Now, immediately, this film reminded me of a film we got not too long ago called Stray, which was about, it was basically a live-action version of this. It's a group of dogs, and they're all voiced by celebrities, and they say vulgar things, and they do vulgar actions, and, they swear a lot, they poop a lot, they have sex a lot, and they just do all the gross-out stuff. Now, there's got to be more to it, because, like, Fix does share a lot in common with Stray, in that it relies on a lot of the vulgarity to carry on a fairly like rickety premise that isn't that intriguing unless you can make like the jokes work with it. Now, to the credit of Fixed, I think like it did improve on one thing that I had a problem with the movie Stray, which was that, I looked at that film and I thought, okay, if you take away all the gross out humor, this could just be like a standard kids film, because it was all about, a dog being abused by his master and trying to find a way back to his dog, but realizing that he's got to learn from other dogs. Like, this could be a kids film. Fixed couldn't be a kids film with its premise, because it is a premise about this lead dog of Bull, voiced by Adam Devine, who's he is doing his best with this role. Like, he's throwing everything he has into this role, which I think works. I think for like this type of like over the top cartoon, you really do have to like throw everything you have into making, this exaggerated dog funny. And I don't think the dog has funny lines. I do think that Adam does have a funny performance that it kept making me wish there were funnier lines here. So he plays a dog called Bull who has giant nuts, and he's very horny. He humps everything, but the only dog that he really wants to hump is Honey, voiced by Katherine Hahn, who's very much like this show dog who Bull feels like is out of his league. So, despite, Honey clearly being into him, Bull doesn't have the confidence, and he's got to work it up, but he feels like he's going to lose that chance because he's due to have his balls cut off by his family. And it's mostly because he can read all the telltale signs from, like, the other dogs that he talks to at the dog park, including Rocco, voiced by Idris Elba, a British boxer who has undergone, like, the surgery and tells him all about it. And the other dogs, like, they're kind of fun. Like, you have Fred Armisen voicing Fetch, who's this kind of like a dachshund who wants to be like an influencer, basically a dog trying to be a human. You have Sterling, voiced by Beck Bennett, who Bennett just kind of gives like the standard voice he always gives, which is just like this, snobby side villain, except here he's kind of like the main villain here, like the nemesis that Bull has to defeat, like to, fearing like this guy is going to take away his girl. And then you have Bobby Monahan voicing Lucky, who's just this very weird dog who says silly things. And Rocco, I thought, was kind of interesting too, as like this boxer who has like mommy issues, but it always feels like there's just enough quirks to make the characters funny on their surface, and then not do much with them beyond just, very simple jokes about what dogs would do. It's just like, oh, like they're pooping in the park despite the humans not wanting them to. They're humping everything. They're sticking their dog dick in everything. And here's the thing. At this point, it's mostly just like the plot is Bull running off into the city, trying to have one more wild night and maybe prove himself to Honey and maybe work up the courage to build up his self-esteem while interacting with other dogs and just, doing wild stuff like eating junk, chasing squirrels, crashing a dog show, crashing a dog sex house. I don't know any other way to say it. It's a whorehouse for dogs where they have weird sex. And you would think, okay, this sounds wild. It sounds gross. It sounds vulgar. And on that level, that's the level you have to go into this film. You have to be willing to accept the vulgarness and the grossness of it and just have fun with it on that level. And I wish I could. I really, really wish I could. But like this film has the same problem that happened with Stray, and I would even say a film like Sausage Party, which is that, it's mostly just one joke beating itself against the wall over and over and over, which is just that dogs are gross, dogs have big balls, they drag them around, they do gross things. But if you're going to be gross, be entirely gross. Go all the way. It always felt like the film was almost getting there, where it was almost getting to that over the top level of vulgarity that was going to be so absurd that I was going to start laughing. There were a few scenes where I was kind of like smiling at. It's like, okay, this is kind of clever, but where are you going to go with this? And then they don't go anywhere with it. Like, it's like they get to like the whole, dog whorehouse, and like, okay, there's a lot you can do here. There's a lot of funny things to explore. It's like, okay, you have a dog doing kind of like an S&M thing where they're just like a dog saying sit and you stay and roll over and play dead. You have dogs shaking water on each other, and then you have dogs trying to imitate like human sex. Okay, not bad, but where else are you going from here? And then they don't really go much of anywhere. There's a little bit of a payoff with with a bear with giant balls like flapping around, and they shoot honey on him. Not bad, but I'm like, okay, this has got to go somewhere. Like, because clearly the story is really not that interesting. I really didn't care that much for Bull, trying to like overcome his self-esteem issues, just because there wasn't much to them. It's mostly just him stammering, just almost just becoming very like nebbish and just learning to like take a sacrifice, which just kind of like almost inexplicably happens by the end of the film. And that's where I was like, okay, the story clearly isn't going to work, so just fall back on just being as gross as you can, and it really doesn't. Even the film Stray went the full 9 yards by showing like an erect dog penis. And for as much as this film talks about like dogs and their balls, and even naming Bull's balls and giving each one a different voice actor, they don't really do much of anything with dog penises and stuff like that. Like I said, it feels weird that I'm complaining that this film doesn't show like dog penises, but this is a film meant to be gross. It's supposed to be disgusting. It's supposed to be over the top. It's supposed to shock you. But the thing is, if it's just one joke, if it's just like dog balls and a little bit of violence here and there and just dogs like screaming the F-bomb every 10 minutes, it loses its luster really quick. It just, by the time you see like the 7th scene of a dog humping something, it loses its impact. And it doesn't matter how well you draw it here. And to be fair, the film does have wonderful animation. I love the exaggeration that Genndy puts on top of all this. I even dug a lot of like the jukebox music choices that they make in this film. I think most of those work, which is why it's so frustrating that everything else doesn't. The gags don't work. They don't really build up any arcs, and which is a shame, because I think there's a lot of potential with the stuff they set up here. I think Rocco, for having mommy issues, could be good, but they don't really do much with them. I really like the fact that they have Lucky form a romance with Frankie, who's an intersex Doberman, voiced by River Gallo, and I thought that was kind of interesting. But beyond just making like the obvious joke about Frankie having was it like a pea pod and a hot dog or something like that, there isn't much done with that. They do have like some sex that does feel a little bit genuine with them, but like I said, they don't go that full. Like, if the film really wanted to be that over the top, I would love to see just like a full to completion like sex scene that shows like genuine love and stuff like that. I think that's the problem here, because like, you watch this film and you're getting Ren and Stimpy vibes. But the thing is, like, Ren and Stimpy knew how to like make you care about certain aspects, so that you weren't just laughing at like the sight of farts and poop, but you were laughing at the fact that it was a story making you care about farts and poops. Because like, I'm drawn back to the Ren and Stimpy episode where Stimpy believes that his fart is sentient and is left home, and treats it very tragically, like he's searching for his lost fart, feeling like that he's lost a son. And, for the few minutes that the story goes on for, it's played up more like a genuine drama, and that by the time Stimpy and his fart are reunited, it's like meant to be heartfelt and like touching, like a very sad homecoming. Because that was the whole framing of that episode, was supposed to be, that Ren and Stimpy is going to make you cry, but it's going to make you cry at the dumbest things. And that's the moment I kept waiting for. I kept waiting for there to be a moment for me to like kind of like engage more with it, to like, to be like a little bit more of like an erotic drama to some degree, or even just go full gross out. And it never quite took off on any level there. Not to mention, this might be like a little bit going off topic here, but I'm getting really tired these adult animated films where, like, much like Sausage Party, where the joke is just, look, we made a cartoon where we're saying the F-bomb and characters are having sex and we're making pee jokes and sex jokes and we're skating the line with, like, racial jokes and all this vulgarity. It's just like, we've had these films before, because, people will say, like, oh, well, it's kind of like the X-rated film Fritz the Cat, but no, Fritz the Cat actually had something to say about the 60s. In fact, most of Bakshi's films had something to say beyond just all the sex, violence, and the swearing and stuff like that. Fritz the Cat had something to say about the 60s. Heavy Traffic had something to say about inner city life and stifled creativity. And Coonskin had something to say about how America views black people. It wasn't just sex and violence for the hell of it. And that's pretty much all Fixed ends up being, mostly just because the story itself didn't work for me. I didn't really dig the characters that much. Honestly, one aspect that I feel really would have fixed, I didn't intend to make that joke. One of the aspects that I feel would improve the movie Fixed would be just to make it a silent film. I think just because all the dialogue that comes, and don't get me wrong, Adam does a good performance here, but all the dialogue coming out of these dogs is not that interesting. It's dull, boring jokes that are trying for a laugh and they never quite land. I would honestly prefer if it was just all barks. Just like you never understood them the whole time. And it's just barks. This is not a story where you need dialogue to drive it. You can pretty much understand where it's going. And if you needed to, I would actually kind of like the idea of just having it be all barks and then have it be like English subtitled. If only to give the film a little bit more of a gimmick. And at least on that, if it was on that level, you could appreciate the animation more, because the animation is really good. You could appreciate just the wild sights and the slapstick without the film struggling to, define all like its different characters through just this reliance on vulgarity. I don't think it'd make the film great, but it'd make it a lot better than the film we got with like dialogue and characters that I really don't care about. And yeah, it's just like it's such a disappointment too, because I love Gendy's work. He's done great stuff in the past. Not even in like the very like long past with like Dexter's Laboratory and Samurai Jack. Even his very recent stuff like Eternal Warriors and Primal. So like that's great, fantastic adult animation. That's the stuff we should have more of. And like it doesn't surprise me then that Fixed has apparently like been an idea that Gendy's been trying to workshop and get studios to approve since like the late 2000s, which doesn't surprise me, because back in the 2000s, edgy adult animation was everywhere, and it's just it was like vulgarity for vulgarity's sake. That was what attracted us to stuff like like Drawn Together and Tripping the Riff, and even when John Kay did his adult party cartoon show, that was. I can understand that mindset back then, but after so many years, it's very clear that like Fixed, it should have come out in the late 2000s. If only it would have felt like it would fit in more with like the more forgettable adult animated films like the Haunted World of El Beasto and stuff like that. It felt like it would have been more of that time, and the fact that it's finally been made and it comes out with this, with everything that we've had with adult animation, in the past few years, we've seen animation improve to a degree where it doesn't just have to be vulgarity for vulgarity's sake. We can actually have like more mature storylines and do something with it. Where, like very much like Ralph Bakshi, it's not enough that you just have sex and violence and all the gross out stuff. There's got to be something more there. Even Sausage Party, for as much as I didn't like that film, it still had something it was trying to say. It was trying to say something about religion. I didn't think it was that great. And even the Sausage Party recent TV show was trying to say something about the state of capitalism. Again, I don't think it was great, but it was trying. It was trying to say something more, do something more clever with it, besides just doing a series of dog jokes that would have been better serviced as like either a short film or a silent film. But as it stands, the way that it is right now, Fixed is just an adult animated comedy that tries too hard to be vulgar and isn't vulgar enough, and just we need better adult animated films than this. Like we've gotten great adult animated series out of stuff like I said with like Primal and stuff like BoJack Horseman and Tuca and Birdie and stuff like that. Animation on television has improved for adults to a heavy degree that I think it's about time that adult animated films should improve as well. So yeah, Fix is just it's a gross out adult animated comedy that isn't gross enough.